Thank you. My name is Piotr Kijewski, and I'm the CEO of the Shadowserver Foundation. I'll be giving you a talk about what Shadowserver does regarding cybersecurity capacity building, because I think, most of you associate us with a certain set of activities, but we also do a lot of that. And the question always comes up, like, what does Shadowserver do regarding capacity building, really? Is it just giving away feeds, right? And it is actually, as you'll find out, a whole lot more. So I have a longish title, but basically we do this capacity building stuff everywhere, and indeed the data is what we bring to the table, but we do actually work on quite a lot of things around that to make it extremely actionable and also help whole countries handle incidents better on a national scale and also possibly on a global scale as well. So a few words about me. I come from a National CSIRT background. I was one of the founders of CERT.PL, CERT.PL, helped build it up over the years. And since that time, I joined Shadowserver like 9 years ago, and for the last 4 years, I've been the head of the Shadowserver Foundation, the CEO. I'm also involved in a lot of other nonprofits, the Honeynet Project, CyberPeace Institute, DIVDNL. And I'm a first.org liaison, but I still do the technical stuff. We're a small team at Shadowserver, 30 people overall, 20 paid staff, 10 volunteers. And we rely on everything we do is just automation, right? That's really it. So anything that can be scaled up and automated is what we really do. So we've been around since 2004 in various forms. First as just a gathering of people essentially trying to do certain things, and officially registered since 2007. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which is public benefit status in the United States, and also in the Netherlands we are sticking with public benefit status as well. So two organizations working together as one. Mission: make the internet more secure for all, which is pretty common nowadays in terms of other nonprofits as well, but it's a mission that we achieve through actually data sharing as such. And we do that at no cost to everybody. Information that can be used to mitigate vulnerabilities, detect malicious activity, or other things, threats that we see. And our differentiator is that we do this in a very responsible manner. That is, we give data that only applies to your network. So we don't make the raw data publicly available. We don't sell the raw data to other entities. We just give it to you as the owner of that information only, and your National CERT and your ISP. So there is a tree for that, and I'll talk about that later. We partner a lot with national government teams and ISPs and other entities across the world. We work closely with law enforcement and security researchers. We do a lot of takedowns with law enforcement, so from the US based to Europe, Europol, FBI, Dutch high-tech crime unit, and a lot more. I won't really be talking about that, but the data we get from that, we also share with the community. And our primary services is essentially a large-scale internet-wide early warning system, feeding threat and vulnerability intelligence that can also be viewed as attack surface monitoring. And we also inform about victims of cybercrime, so compromised devices and such. We work a lot with law enforcement on disruptions, and the focus today will be on our cybersecurity capacity building. So when we talk about network owners, people think, oh, ISPs, but we actually serve around 10,000 organizations that register their assets with us, like their IPs, domains, etc. And we actually give them data specific to their networks, so it's not just through the national CERTs. The national CERTs have their own systems where they also cover other organizations subscribe to them. So by proxy, we actually provide direct coverage of some kind of like 60-70% of 60% of the IP space around the world. And we do that through a variety of means. The core data sets is essentially sinkholing. So stuff we do when we take over malicious infrastructure, we redirect its traffic from that infrastructure to us, usually by domain takeover. Usually that happens as part of a larger process, law enforcement process and court orders. And then we can see visibility into who was actually infected, the victims that were beaconing out. Examples are like prominent examples, SolarWinds, Sunburst. We actually have all the domains used for that, which we received through a court order, and we're able to monitor all the victims of that particular attack and that particular actor. But in general, we do that for hundreds of malware families in the internet. We also scan everything, basically, for vulnerabilities, compromises, etc., and that's also shared out for free with the community. We run sensors at scale, honeypots that pick out latest and greatest attacks. The sensors emulate vulnerable devices, from firewalls to routers to any other application that you can find on the internet. And if you know VirusTotal, we have our own VirusTotal. We collect about 1 million malware samples by hash, a unique malware sample by hash every single day for nearly 2 billion total. We have our own antivirus engines and all that. And finally, we have a lot of other data sets as well, smaller ones, and all together they come and serve our mission, essentially, of giving that data for free in a responsible manner to the right entity. And basically, this kind of sums up the way we share data. It's always sliced in a way, so we don't give Danish data to the Netherlands or Netherlands data to Denmark in terms of national CERT. And if you're a provider like Telia and you have a provider like T-Mobile, Telia will only get Telia's data, T-Mobile, T-Mobile's data. They'll never get each other's data. So that makes it like a bit more responsible. And the data, most importantly, since we give it to governments, cannot be used for offensive purposes. It's mostly low-level IOCs, indicators of specific malware, exploitation attempts, attack surface exposure. That's our core kind of area of work that is the most automatable. We do other forms of threat intelligence, which I won't go into here as well, but that's more of a manual process or a less automated one at least. But the core offering are these feeds, which currently come in about 150 different forms, which are tailored to the issue they are reporting. So there's tons of data coming in, and that's coming out of us. To give you an idea, it's 1 billion events shared with everybody around the world every single day. 1 billion events that have some kind of security relevance. Many are just about exposure. It may be innocent kind of exposure, you're not vulnerable yet. Others are much more serious, remote code executions or compromised devices or infected machines. You can register with our service for free by providing ASN, CIDR blocks, domains. If you're in the cloud, you can provide us any IPs that you have in the cloud as well. Even if they change dynamically, we can offer you an API where you can push the changes every single day to make sure we actually give you up-to-date data. And I think that's a feature that is pretty much underused. So those of you that do use the cloud intensively and haven't registered the cloud with us in a form or other should try to do that as well. And as well as your domain names and the like as well. So that's how we actually filter through the trash we collect from the internet. Anyone can subscribe to our feeds. They're free. Minimum formalities you just mail to us from. Make sure it's you provide an email that reflects your company organization account and some details that we try to verify for you. We are not a small shop by any means. You can see our data center here. It's pretty big. Over 1,000 servers running currently. 4 times 10 gig uplinks. Original value of the equipment that we had there is about $40 million. So lots of VMs, thousands of VMs, as you can see, nearly 15 petabytes of storage. And all of this is kind of like an internet archive of badness and the main engine that powers Shadowserver, right? This allows us to actually share out the 1 billion events every single day. Coverage, national governments that get our data, 201 national CERTs around the world. Autonomous system owners by IP space. Europe, we have 63% covered, so 63% of IP space by ASN subscriptions is covered with direct access to our feeds, not necessarily through the national government, which also happens with the national CERTs quite a bit. A lot of our data can be seen in public, in terms of statistics at least. We have a dashboard where you can track a lot of vulnerabilities and how they're remediated across the world, which is actually one of the key points I'll raise later regarding metrics and measurements. That's all up there for free, sponsored kindly by the UK government, and you can see the UK logo over there, and it's a constant work in progress and updated. So that's a very quick overview of what we do, because it's kind of important in terms of how we actually approach cybersecurity capacity building. And essentially, we try a very much bottom-up approach compared to everybody, or a lot of other organizations that do a top-down approach. So we are less about policies and just trainings and workshops, but more about giving people data and then teaching people how to use that data to secure their networks. So this is like a quick past history of what we've been doing and some ongoing stuff. A lot of our cybersecurity capacity building work is built on UK government funding from the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. We also have some funding from some other players as well, who I will mention later. But basically, this is focused on developing countries down global south. But everything that we do for these countries is essentially boiled down to improving our data, which then serves all the other countries as well that are not initial targets, right? So the UK government benefits of our funding is that even though we help Africa and Indo-Pacific, all of that knowledge and the data we get for the UK is then shared back to the UK itself, just the UK data, of course. So we've been doing quite a lot in terms of actually reaching out to countries over the years, making sure that all of them are subscribed, running quite a lot of awareness campaigns, translating a lot of our materials into local languages. The dashboard I showed is translated into 75 languages, again, thanks to UK funding. And we found that that has really adapted a lot of what we do into the local media in quite a lot of these countries. So if you look at our dashboard, you can essentially get it in this set of languages as such. I'm not sure it includes Danish. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, we can always maybe work with the Danish CERT to include that as well. We do a lot of training, so we go around conferences teaching people how to do the feeds. We launch webinars as well. We have an opportunity to do that with some new people we hired. So that is the classic kind of like communication thing that we keep doing, one-on-one CSIRT mentoring, country threat assessments. We try to focus them on some problems we're seeing in their networks, prepare materials for them in local languages like Indonesian here. We make efforts to train also our sponsors in what cybercrime is, how the cybercrime ecosystem works. We take part in a lot of international initiatives, including things like GFCE, GC3B's pledge, essentially for cyber-resilient development, where we pledge free CTI to national CERTs and others. We are part of the Pall process between the UK and France on essentially tracking post-exploitation frameworks and alerting about their use. And we work with the EU on an EU-sponsored project together with Circle, one of the Luxembourgish national CERTs, on building a MISP instance dedicated to law enforcement, which is actually operational and to which we feed additional data that can be used for cybercrime actor tracking. So here is a photo from the Deputy Prime Minister, who actually mentioned us at one of his announcements a while back. And you can visit the MISP. So if you have any association with law enforcement in your country and they aren't using the MISP LEA project, you should please ask them to contact us or Circle. We have done capacity building work in the Pacific Island states, kindly funded by CERT New Zealand, which included one-on-one mentoring sessions and explaining to them how to use the data and getting them hooked up in the first place. And in many cases, we are actually the only provider of threat intel at scale to these small countries that, they don't really attract any commercial interest at all, because the scale is just too small for many commercial players to engage. We have worked with LACNIC and CEDIA in Ecuador, which is a national research and academic network in Ecuador, on developing IoT honeypots, which we deployed in the region to feed the region more with more local information about threats. And that is still working, although the funding actually has in fact ended. We do quite a lot of support for NGOs around the world. We started a project and finished one actually recently, a project for the Netherlands funded by the Dutch government on essentially teaching NGOs about cyber and how to use feeds and how to do basic checks to see if they're vulnerable or not to many attacks. So this is something we have done together with a bunch of other partners, including the Hague Humanity Hub and the Global, and some others as well, CyberPeace Institute, and some other organizations as well, which ended up in a report that kind of analyzed around 200 NGOs in the Netherlands and reported findings on vulnerabilities and all the issues we faced. And we also did some training for them to help them understand being under-resourced on how to actually respond and detect any issues on their networks, which are usually small. So they come with a completely different set of problems, because also they're not just small, but the users and the admins and anyone there is technical. These kind of folk are essentially missing. Another one we are actually doing also with the CyberPeace Institute, that it serves nonprofits globally. So we try to have them act also together with us, where they reach out to NGOs and get them subscribed to our services, and also monitor essentially the data we share to the nonprofits and provide them technical assistance in actually dealing with a lot of problems. So this is what we've been doing the last 5 years regarding cybersecurity capacity building. It's quite a lot, but I think now we want to get it to the next stage, where we want to create kind of like a model and a toolkit that we can make as an offering to a lot of places that are underserved currently, but also to others who want to learn better how to integrate with our feeds. And quite often we hear from many teams across Africa and the Pacific, national teams or ISPs or others, that we give them so much data that they don't know what to do with it, right? So we're trying to kind of push the current kind of like weak points further down the line by actually providing a technical set of tools where they don't have to worry about certain things like how to set up ingestion of our feeds, how to get an API key, how to analyze the data. They can now start focusing on just the data analysis, the analysis itself, and just responding and sharing the information within their communities. So our main goals currently is just to go beyond all the trainings, one-on-one actions, and try to streamline our efforts. And what we really want to achieve is improving threat vulnerability detection across a country, a constituency, improve general situation awareness to a government or a sectorial CERT or an ISAC or an ISP or anyone really that is interested in that as well. All of that is to essentially enable effective incident response. Like too often we find we have given the data should have been acted on. It's a critical remote code execution vulnerability reported exploited by ransomware actors, and nothing has been done, right? And that's something that we want to make sure that if we know it, obviously attackers will also know it, and something needs to be done with it. But all too often we find that is not the case. So that's really what we want to do, and the goal is really to strengthen national cyber resilience and global global cyber resilience as a whole as well. So we have come up currently, and that's kind of like a work in progress, what we will call our toolkits, to make it clear what we can offer a specific party or a country. We try to offer as much as possible for free. Some of it requires funding because it requires additional work from us or travel, which we, being a non-profit, that actually hurts us a bit if we have to do this from our own sources. But we try to make it as open as possible. And the idea is really to provide a digital pipeline from us to a country, to a national CSIRT, where that national CSIRT has all the resources and tools necessary to start rebroadcasting what we are sharing about a specific problem to the community, right? So to make sure that the right information reaches the right people at the right time, which is often not the case, and it is actually acted upon. So that is kind of the ambition, the goal. We are still not there yet, but that is what we want to achieve as the end goal, have it like a smooth system where there's a new vulnerability announced or a new compromise at scale, for instance, and we know where things are. We broadcast it to the national CSIRTs or users that directly subscribe to our services, and things get done, things get fixed, and it's done quickly because the window of exploitation is getting shorter and shorter. So all of this is supposed to build on the experience I previously mentioned. And what it really is of course, our free daily Shadowserver data, CTI data that comes in quite large volumes for some countries like the United States. For CISA, it will be like 200, 300 million events every single day. For other countries, smaller islands, about maybe 1,000 or so a day, but still quite a lot for the capacity you normally have. Another module is the Collaboration Outreach Partnerships Development module, which includes dedicated liaisons for certain world regions. I'll talk about that later. Training workshops built around the data, structured in a more efficient manner than has been so far. We are offering to set up and maintain an automated platform on the recipient side, so the customer side, where they can have tools that automatically ingest, process, and analyze our data. And this is built around open source IntelliMQ, along with an Elasticsearch and Kibana on top with dashboards that we designed. So if we have the funding in some way, because that does need the funding, so we can make like the VMs available for free. But if we are to maintain it, then that unfortunately comes with some funding needed. We want to work together with partners on their data and do joint CTI analysis and dedicated alerts to their constituency as well, so help in that process. At the same time, we want to run a dedicated program to improve relevance and quality of the CTI we collect, and I'll go into that later, and metrics to track progress and measure success. We are working on hard data, so unlike a lot of the capacity building efforts, which, I mean, to be honest, are mostly talk, right? We want to be able to measure actual results with actual metrics that we can track and based on hard data. And if we are all successful in establishing all of that, propose to some national CERTs or other organizations joint threat vulnerability reduction eradication programs within their country, right? So we want to say that, for example, country X has a problem with malware, with a certain strain of malware, we want to eliminate it, or a certain vulnerability, we want to eliminate it, or a certain exposure, and we work together to eliminate it. So this is stuff we are doing now. We have, thanks to UK funding across Africa and the Indo-Pacific, we have a dedicated liaison for the first time, a person locally in the region in Africa, Andy Chadwick, who is actually here as well, is our lead for Africa, and he'll be focused on developing all our connections across Africa, but especially for priority countries. Similarly, we have a liaison now in the Indo-Pacific, Barry Green, based out of New Zealand, and he's our contact for the Indo-Pacific, traveling across the region. And here are like a list of all the goals that we want to really achieve, from awareness raising, mentoring, one-on-one sessions, assisting entities for country-specific investigations, manually also alerting. Most of our process is automated, but manually alerting on various issues found. Collaboration as well with funding authorities that actually funded us. They also have their own strategic goals, so we're happy to help. And of course, a lot of this is in Africa currently because we have a common funding authority, the FCDO. We also do together with FIRST, but even if that wasn't the case, we'll be working together with FIRST. We also get some funding from GIZ, which is an agency for foreign aid from the German government. So essentially what we have done so far is kind of like an Intel MQ and Elasticsearch in a box solution, which are VMs built around Intel MQ, Elasticsearch, and Kibana. And we can, if you approach us and would like a copy in the future, we'll give it to you once we finish all the packaging issues. That is there for free, and maybe it just will be made public in the future as well. Main goal, reduce technical barriers on the recipient side by providing these VMs in the cloud or on-prem. And manage them essentially on behalf of the feed recipient, which can be a national government for that. And this allows for automation of incident handling, situational awareness, and automating notifications. So basically, you can set it up, and then an entity that can understand who is affected where, who is responsible for a specific IP block or domain will automatically get notifications. So this is like an example of a configuration for Intel MQ. I won't go into detail of that, but we provide that also as a training. Essentially, there is a training package together with FIRST that allows us to teach people how to configure these kinds of tools to work with our feeds. But we also have, as I said, we can offer something totally pre-configured, dashboards that we designed to look at our data and analyze it, so understand it at a glance, what's important and what isn't. We often get feedback, as I said, that too much data, and what do we handle first, right? So this is the tool that is meant to help with that. So all kinds of, this is like a default dashboard that you can get, and we are doing like a pilot of that together with WACREN, the West African Research and Education Network that is responsible for a lot of research and academia connectivity in West Africa. So they're doing a hub for that region based on our data. Hands-on trainings, we actually do develop trainings together with FIRST to teach people step by step how to do all that, how to use the API, how to install Intel MQ, then also actually work on an Intel MQ with Elasticsearch and dashboard. This is done based on the FIRST platform, which is actually developed by a company called CTF Room, to which FIRST is a tenant, and we actually use their platform, but maybe we'll just be a separate tenant as well and collaborate. And what we'll be looking for in the future is essentially train the trainers initiatives for organizations that can provide boots on the ground. So because we cannot scale as such with the trainings, and we'll need local help in a specific region like Africa. So this is an example of the training: Intel MQ, Shadowserver introduction and API use, and Elasticsearch. This is like an event from last week that we did with Ghana for WACREN and academic networks in West Africa, and a 2-day training that teaches every step bit by bit, pretty well attended. And I think it's like, as I said, everybody gets their own VM in the cloud where they get the full set ready to actually download and use. So quite a lot of these slides here, configuration, Intel MQ, step by step, as you can see. So easy to follow. Elasticsearch examples, trainings around that as well. And moving on to quickly, as I've been running out of time, is essentially assistance. That's something that we're also offering essentially to deal with many of the latest threats, like including remote code execution CVEs in a specific country or community, improving quality by installing honeypot sensors specific to a particular constituency that emulate better devices across specific constituencies in Africa or Indo-Pacific, for example. That is also based on our LACNIC experience, fine-tuning our scanning to a specific constituency to better detect and understand the device exposure around the world. Also, not just there, but once we can also always apply the data elsewhere. And a lot of that actually also feeds back to the community, wider community, because we publish these exploited vulnerability lists, which are also used by CISA, CAV, EPSS. So everything that we're actually doing there doesn't just benefit the recipient of the capacity building, direct recipient, but essentially global understanding of certain threats and vulnerabilities, not just in a region, but essentially everywhere. And this does have an impact. We are actually, according to VonCheck, so a third-party company, they did some studies that found that we are actually the earliest detector of exploitation in the wild globally. So all these efforts actually do seem to pay off. To quickly wrap up my presentation, metrics and measurements, because all of this is actually hard data in the end, we can actually track progress across various issues around the world and how they're actually dealt with, who is more effective and who isn't. So we encourage everyone to use this data more for these kinds of purposes as well, if they're actually trying to be involved in such initiatives or curious how well they're doing. You can use that as a reference point. And a few words on the joint threat vulnerability reduction eradication. That is also something that we plan to do, and a potential pilot with the National CSIRT. If they're interested in this kind of activity, we could try to combine it together and measure how effective we actually are. So I've run about 2 minutes over time. So just to finish, there are free services available to give you a lot of good actionable threat intel. Some of it is bleeding edge stuff that can help even the most advanced recipients, the most advanced parties. We are actually trying to also offer a cybersecurity capacity building toolkit that essentially helps you take away a lot of the technical problems integrating with our feeds, or teaches you how to deal with them, which is a barrier in many places, especially underserved regions or organizations that simply can't afford the technical expertise. This is built around IntelMQ, which is an open source software developed by people from the National CSIRT community. Around 1,000 organizations use it worldwide. It's free. On top of that, we built Elasticsearch and Kibana, along with dashboards that let you visualize stuff. We have plugins that let you map IPs to recipients' contacts, so you can actually use the platform to alert via email or some other mechanism about the problems found. And we have dedicated programs which we want to launch to support specific constituencies around the world. And hopefully having data in the community, especially if you're starting off with something like this, helps you really make a difference, and people understand that you're there to help them in an effective manner. You come with something that is actually useful to them instead of policing them, as often happens in many cases in some regions of the world. So that was a lightning view of what we do in terms of capacity building. Ran a bit over time, but I hope it was interesting. And if you have any questions, I'm around. And I also have stickers if you'd like them, lots of Shadowserver stickers. They're also free. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. And talk to you later.
It is the last session here, so if there are questions, we've got the mics up the side. I can run one to you. Obviously, if you've got things you need to run to, you can, but we're also happy to take questions. So
yeah, I'm here, so just let me. I'm here till Friday as well, so.
Awesome. Thanks again. Thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you.